people have already asked me this question. Has James Bond ever visited Poland? Well, to be honest, even I don't know that. However, what I'm certain of is the fact that we had our James Bonds. To be clear, quite many of them. Furthermore, it wasn't just Agent 007. We had James Bonds in skirts and pants, tall and small, young and old. James Bond fought with brutal criminals, while our Polish agents simply fought for justice and freedom, which thanks to them, we are still lucky to have today. And this is my class. Funny, right? As you look at us, you don't really see James Bonds. Cell phones and social media became our life. Lately, I've realized that we never really appreciated freedom. 26 years ago, our agents and their helpers completed their mission and disproved communism. However, our generation never really understood the struggles or courage they had. The civic society in which we live today has been created and established by people like them. It's really important that you note the fact that we had thousands of James Bonds. However, in our story, we'll show you just very few of them. This comparison isn't a coincidence, but there is one major difference between the two. James Bond and Casino Royale is 100% fiction. Meanwhile, Polish Solidarność, which means solidarity, that started in the strike in Stocznia, Gdańsk, in 1980, is pure reality. In fact, its source was John Paul II's visit in Poland in 1979 when he told millions of Poles what their mission was, and that was the beginning of the end of communism. And he said, "Let your spirit descend and change the face of the land, this land." So that's exactly what they did. To start with, Solidarność was an independent, self-governing trade union which has been established to fight for workers' rights. However, quickly, our James Bond's goal became releasing all their compatriots from communism. Its leader was Lech Wałęsa, commonly known as Lech Walesa, or Agent 007. James Bond had loads of many advanced weapons or tech gadgets, but our agents' weapons were courage, brotherhood, hope, motivation, and the rest of the community. Most importantly, they had each other, and nothing could prevent them from being the risk-takers they were. Helping one another is one of the qualities that led to the existence of the civic society. Now that you know the history of our heroes, you're ready to discover some of the most unbelievable events that happened during that period of time. In my modest opinion, they could surely become a plot of the next James Bond movie. Chapter 1. Agent 001. Action Broken Printer. The first notable James Bond we'll mention is Mr. Leszek Stal, who was one of the underground printers and publishers in communism. One day, filled with hard work as always, Mr. Leszek Stal's friend, who was the boss in the town hall's printing industry, called him and stated that one professional printer machine called Romeo 312, which was supposedly broken, was going to be salvaged. The truck arrived near the town hall, and our clever Bond and the rest of his publication loaded the machine onto the truck by using a crane, while the police was right around the corner. The police approached them, however, they have already prepared papers that said that they're taking the machine to the junkyard, so the policeman agreed to watch the machine so that nobody disturbs in loading it. The machine has been repaired in Warsaw, while Mr. Stahl salvaged the same amount of rails as the weight of the machine so that the depository receipts looked authentic. Chapter 2. Agent 002. Do not leave any traces. Mr. Jan Lityński was an activist and editor of a Polish leaflet called Robotnik, which means the worker. Nowadays, it's incredibly hard to find objects or photos from that period of time. Most people who were involved in the process of disproving communism destroyed all the traces of Solidarność to avoid risk, or they have been confiscated. James Bond never left any traces behind. That's why finding bags full of mysterious objects, just like Mr. Lityński's bag, is extremely rare today. Chapter 3. Agent 003. Action Skirt. Another incredible event involves Mr. Bogdan Bujak, who was an activist and courier during communism. Along with Mrs. Valentina and Mr. Mieczysław Białach, he contributed to disproving communism more than we can imagine. Along with them and another group of friends, every James Bond needs helpers, he attended a strike on the stadium. He had to smuggle a banner that said Solidarność, since possessing such banner led to staying in prison for a whole year. His female colleague hid it under her skirt and brought it onto the stadium. When they arrived at their spot, they wrote Ursus Walczący, which means Ursus fights, with red lipstick on the banner. It was a giant risk because owning such sign threatened with a 4-year stay in prison. Have you noticed that all these stories have one thing in common? They all involve so many people. After Solidarność achieved their goal in 1989, people started coming up with initiatives, creating organizations and unions, and the Polish society became stronger than ever. An example of such organization is the Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights. Its graduate is the present Polish spokesman of human rights, Mr. Adam Bodnar.
It is quite interesting that one of the leading human rights organizations, the Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, was founded by members of the Solidarity movement. Some of them in 1989 have decided to go into politics because they were elected as members of parliament, as ministers, but some of them have decided that their role is to control the government, to perform so-called watchdog function over the government, and they established in fact, the most important human rights organization in Poland.
Think about it. All these people never worried about their families while they stay in prison because they knew that somebody would help them. Can you see how much they have devoted to achieving a goal so many people shared?
In my opinion, without the solidarity movement, we would not have a civil society in Poland as it exists right now. I think majority of non-governmental organizations in Poland pursue the same values as solidarity movement did. It applies to protection of civil rights and freedoms. It applies to protection of social rights. It is also connected with the way how those organizations operate.
All the qualities listed above make a civic society. A civic society is an independent institution consisting of organizations and individuals who are independent of the government. Now I can see where and how it all started. All of the traces of Solidarność are present in today's world and organizations. Even the very famous Polish James Bond agrees with me in this topic. Ms. Ewa Kulik-Bielińska, who was an activist during communism.
When you look at the organizations that are active in the defense of human rights, that are fighting against discrimination of different minorities or people who are vulnerable or people who are attacked, that's the effect of solidarity. When you look at the organizations that are involved in the humanitarian aid abroad or in the development aid, or those who are working with their partners in the countries that are still under communism or under dictatorship, there you can see the effects and consequence of solidarity and the effects of the battle that we were fighting here in Poland.
James Bond always said, "My name is Bond, James Bond." And our agent 007, Lech Walesa, said, "We, the people," in his famous speech in the American Congress after communism has been disproved. And that's the difference between them. James Bond always goes solo, and Poles are a civic society trying to achieve the goal they all share.